The first time the HOA told me my dock was illegal, I laughed. 3 days later, I was staring at 3 brand new cabins sitting on my land, glowing at night like they'd always belonged there. And that's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about taking something they never owned. They wanted me to tear down a dock I'd had for 15 years. Too bad they built their cabins on my lakefront. I've lived on this land long before anyone ever whispered the letters HOA like it meant authority. 5 acres wrapped around the lake in a wide horseshoe, quiet enough that you can hear the wind move across the water before you feel it. I built my dock with permits, inspections, the whole boring legal process, back when the loudest neighbor complaint was about geese. I liked it that way. When Sunrise Shores HOA formed last year, everyone else signed on. Dues, rules, newsletters, committees. I didn't. I'd seen how those stories end. I kept my property independent, paid my taxes, minded my business, and thought that would be the end of it. That illusion lasted right up until Karen Whitmore came marching down my dock in stiff beige capris, HOA-issued clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask permission. She planted herself at the edge of my dock, tapped her pen like a judge about to pass sentence, and announced, "This dock violates Section 16, Paragraph 9. You'll need to remove it within 15 days or face daily fines." I leaned against the railing, coffee in hand, honestly amused. I told her I built the dock 15 years ago, long before Sunrise Shores existed. She sniffed and said that didn't matter. According to the revised charter, all waterfront structures now fell under community oversight. Community waterfront. Those words stuck in my throat. I asked her if she was telling me my private land I pay taxes on was suddenly shared. She nodded without blinking. Correct. She walked off muttering into a walkie-talkie like she'd just won something. I stood there longer than I should have, watching her disappear up the gravel path, feeling that quiet unease crawl into my gut. I had my deeds, my surveys, everything locked in a fireproof safe. I told myself she was bluffing. HOA bullies thrive on bluster. I went inside and tried to forget about it. That night I took my ATV up to the west ridge above the lake, mostly to clear my head. And that's when I saw them. 3 identical prefab cabins, freshly built porch lights glowing, sitting right along the shoreline. They hadn't been there a month earlier. They were sitting exactly where my property curves around the lake. My land. I remember just standing there, helmet still on engine, idling, staring like my brain refused to catch up with my eyes. They wanted me to remove my dock for violating rules. Meanwhile, they'd quietly built cabins on my lakefront. The next morning I drove straight into town. County clerk first. I asked for my original property plat and any recent filings connected to Sunrise Shores HOA. The clerk took her time digging through archives, and when she rolled out the blueprints on the counter, my stomach dropped. A thick red line cut across my property, rerouting the boundary just enough to reclassify the western shoreline as common space. The problem was simple: that line didn't exist on the original plat. Someone had submitted a revised map without my signature. I asked who approved it. She told me zoning had rubber-stamped it during the holidays. December 28th. Signed off by a temporary inspector who worked there 3 weeks and vanished. No site visit, no field notes, just ink and silence. I walked out of that office with copies under my arm and a knot in my chest that felt heavier with every step. For the first time I wondered if I was wrong, if I'd missed something. If maybe HOA rules really could swallow private land whole if you weren't paying attention. That doubt followed me home and sat beside me at the kitchen table while I stared at those papers. I thought about lawyers' court costs, time stress. I thought about just tearing the dock down, selling, walking away. And for a moment, I almost convinced myself that was the smart move. Then I checked my trail cameras. I'd installed 6 weatherproof cameras around the lake after a break-in last year. Mostly they caught raccoons, deer kids sneaking in to fish. But 4 months back, just after sunset, I saw a crew pull up in an unmarked truck. Dark utility jackets, surveying gear. They measured the western shoreline, flagged trees, and left within an hour. No one knocked on my door. A week later, construction equipment arrived overnight. Cabins were craned into place without permits, inspections, or notice. That doubt I'd been carrying burned off like fog. I downloaded everything, labeled files, backed them up twice, one copy in the safe, one in my pocket. Then I went to the sheriff's office. Deputy Morales didn't waste time. She watched the footage, studied the altered plat, and sat a little straighter in her chair. She told me if property lines were altered under false pretenses, that wasn't an HOA issue, that was fraud. By the time I got home, the dock had a glossy new sign planted beside it. Community use area, trash can, park bench, like props in a bad play. The next morning, my friend Marty showed up with GPS gear and state land use codes. We walked the boundary for hours. He confirmed what I already knew: every cabin sat squarely on my land. No easement, no lease, no transfer. Trespassing plain and simple. He wrote the report on the spot. When Karen returned, flanked by 2 board members, she accused me of interfering with authorized HOA improvements. I handed her the survey, the cease and desist order, and told her she'd built rentals on private land using forged documents. One board member wouldn't meet my eyes. Another quietly pulled the fake community sign out of the ground as they left. That was the moment the tide turned. The sheriff froze access to the cabins. Zoning flagged violations. The district attorney opened an investigation. And then the bigger truth came out. A developer named Theodore Mays had bankrolled the HOA in exchange for development rights over acquired common land. The cabins were Phase 1. My lakefront was the prize. Code enforcement tagged the cabins for demolition. A lawyer tried to negotiate. Karen tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. I told them the only settlement I'd accept was a permanent injunction keeping the HOA off my land forever. The court didn't need long. Forged plats, fake notary seals, rental income disguised as beautification funds. Karen and 2 board members were convicted. The cabins came down in a single day, reduced to splinters and dust. The HOA collapsed under its own weight. I sat on my dock that night, the water quiet again. No signs, no benches, no clipboards. Just the lake and the land that never stopped being mine. Some people think rules give them power. Turns out the truth still matters more.